The Washington Wizards enter another season with an ever-changing roster, which seems to be a theme ever since John Wall has been injured. It was fairly consistent with John Wall and Bradley Beal leading the way for a long time. Then John Wall was out. Then you had Russell Westbrook. Now you bring in Spencer Dinwiddie, Kyle Kuzma, along with a few other pieces. And so I want to talk about some of those pieces they have added today, what it means for this roster, and in line with that, what I expect from this Washington Wizards team for the 2021-22 season. Be sure to let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. If you do go on to enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. With that being said, let's go ahead and talk about this Washington Wizards team. Ultimately, Russell Westbrook is gone. Spencer Dinwiddie, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Kyle Kuzma, Montrezl Harrell, Aaron Holiday are all in, as well as Corey Kispert being selected in the first round. A lot of new players in this team. There's a lot of depth on this Washington Wizards team, which makes some of the rotational questions a little bit up in the air, and we'll discuss some of those dilemmas and questions that they have within the rotation headed into the upcoming season. But this is a deep team. That is definitely one of the strengths of their team, especially in and around the forward spots and at center. And even at guard, they have a nice number of players that can serve a role for them as well. But ultimately, the question just remains, do they have enough around Bradley Beal to be able to get into the playing games when compared to some of the other teams in the East? When keep in mind the teams that are competing with them are teams like Toronto, Indiana, Charlotte. Teams that some people might have a lot higher than the 10th, 9th seed in the Eastern Conference or the 11th seed. But ultimately, there's just too many good teams in the Eastern Conference. And so that's the type of teams that the Wizards are competing against. There's a lot of talent in the East. And so ultimately, they are going to have to be very good to get into the playing games. And that's just the nature of the Eastern Conference for this upcoming season. And so when you look at this team, of course, Spencer Dinwiddie was brought in. Now, he was playing extremely well before his injury. But of course, he did have a significant lower body injury. And although he is still relatively young at age 28, it still just remains to be seen how healthy he will be, how long it takes for him to adjust, and ultimately he might end up being fine, but if it takes him 20 or 30 games to adjust and get back to game speed, that is going to hurt this team for the upcoming season. Ultimately, we know when healthy, if he can get back to his same level of play, he can be a good playmaker and a good scorer, but that just remains to be seen if he can get back to that level of play and how early on in the season he can get back to that level of play. Bradley Beal is going to do what Bradley Beal is going to do. He's going to put up his buckets, get it close to 30 a night. That's a given. Where things get a little bit more unsure is who is going to be starting and playing in the small forward and power forward spots. As of right now, it looks like, and I would guess, that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope will start at the 3. And Rui Hachimura, when healthy, will start at the 4, although it is possible that we see Kyle Kuzma end up starting at the 4. Personally, I do think Kyle Kuzma is best as a 6th man for this team. I think he is best as a 6th man on pretty much any team. I think that suits his play style best, but one of those two will be starting at the 4. I think Kuzma's going to have a much improved year this year in a bigger role if he can be in the right role, and that's why I think it's best for him to be off the bench, not necessarily always playing with Beal and Dinwiddie, guys that need to have the ball in their hands a lot more and are going to have a lot of the scoring opportunities. And so ultimately that just remains to be seen who will be that guy for them. And then same can be said for the center position. I expect and encourage that Daniel Gafford is the starting center, as he completely revolutionized their defense when he came into the team last year. He was a very good defensive anchor and rim protector for them, and in turn the team bought in on the defensive end a lot more, and they will very much benefit from his continued defensive impact on this team the upcoming season. But Montrezl Harrell will likely also get some minutes between the 4 or the 5, with most of them being at the 5. Of course, you can't really play him in the playoffs, but in the regular season he is fine. And then Thomas Bryant, when he is back from injury, I would expect to get some minutes as well, as he is still a young up-and-coming center for this team. But I would expect Daniel Gafford is the starting center for this group for the entirety of the season. Ultimately, outside of that, you're then looking at Aaron Holiday and Raul Neto to give you some backup point guard minutes, with one of them potentially playing some time at the 2. Corey Kispert, who they just drafted, who can be a good three-point shooting spacing wing for them, can play some time at the 2 or at the 3. I think ultimately is going to be the Davis Bertans replacement if they can ever move on from his contract, because ultimately, if he continues to play like he did last year, he is not worth anywhere near the money he's being paid. He did not shoot well from deep last year compared to how he should, compared to how he had shot in the past. It was extremely inconsistent, and ultimately, for as much money as they're paying him, if they can get a similar level of production from Corey Kispert on a rookie deal, then that is the best for them moving forward. So expect Corey Kispert to be given a good run of games this season to see if he can be that guy for them. So alongside Davis Bertans, who will get some time at the forward spots, they also had Zenny Avdia, who I feel like people have just forgotten about this offseason. Not really mentioned him when discussing the Wizards. Not really mentioned him in the rotation when they discussed the Wizards this upcoming season. He was a 9th overall pick 1 year ago. He's not just going to not play, or at least he shouldn't. This is a top 10 pick who's only had 54 games in the NBA, and ultimately was not used that well in most of his time in the NBA last year. He was just thrown in the corner and told to be a spot-up shooter. But when some injuries did occur for this Washington Wizards team, and he was allowed to be more than just a spot-up shooter, he showed that he can be more than just a spot-up shooter. And with good length at 6'9", he has versatility to be able to play at multiple positions, and to be able to be more than just a catch-and-shoot three-point guy, because he's not even a great three-point shooter, at least not at this point in time in his career. Ultimately, I think if he can be played in a better role, that's more than just throwing him in the corner, and I think he can provide some impact for this team as well. And so I hope he doesn't just get buried on the bench behind Kuzma, KCP, Hachimura, Kispert, and Bertans, because any of these still deserves a chance in the league, and if the Wizards aren't going to give him that, then they should at least let him try and do that somewhere else. So ultimately, you get the fact that we have now mentioned well over 10 names for this Wizards team that are going to be important rotational pieces for this group. They have good depth. That is their strength. Outside of Daniel Gafford, I do have concerns about their defense. Kyle Kuzma defensively is fine, not great. Bradley Beal used to be great defensively, but now isn't anymore now that they focus it so much on offense. KCP is fine defensively, but nowhere near what he used to be a couple of years ago. And Spencer Dinwiddie, well, that just remains to be seen, because lower body injuries often can be a detriment to a player's defense. So ultimately, I think this is going to be a fine team. I think they're going to still have a great offense with Bradley Beal, now adding Spencer Dinwiddie, Kuzma. You're going to have someone like either Kyle Kuzma or Rui Hachimura off the bench. Throw in the likes of Corey Kispert, Davis Bertans, Montrezl Harrell. They're going to have a lot of scoring on this team, but ultimately, I don't think their top-end talent alongside Beal is quite good enough, alongside a defense that I don't think is going to be a top 10 defense in the league, which in combination, I just don't think is going to be enough to get them into the playoffs, because ultimately, I don't see them being better than a team like Indiana, Toronto, or Charlotte. But let me know down in the comment section what you guys expect from this Washington Wizards group for the upcoming season. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And if you want to hear other season previews from me as we approach the NBA season, then be sure to click the box on the right-hand side of the screen. That being said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.